I think, maybe just the first one that comes to mind that really rocked me. I saw Castle Freak when I was much too young to see that movie. I was horrified. I still remember the actual images that were disturbing as well. There are a few performances that have always been huge inspirations for me as an actor. After I was already in it and doing work, I saw Woman Under the Influence. I think I was about 15. I didn't necessarily relate to where she was in her life. It was just that it was one of those performances that, I don't mean to get into this subject necessarily at all, but just that you see a lot of men do. It was a tough character that wasn't easy to love until the end, and that's sort of not common for a starring role. It's always somebody who overcomes who runs away from her, husband that beats her, or something like that. You know, it's always something that's a little bit easier and more obvious to relate to. I was 9 when I did my first movie. I definitely was not the type of child one would cast in a commercial or anything that you typically go out for as a young kid. It didn't work out, so I ditched the commercial thing. I did this thing. I had to sing a song in a school thing. I would be the last person in the whole school to do that. That's how I met my agent. I sang a dreidel song, which is funny for me. I've never celebrated Hanukkah. I would love to. It just wasn't my upbringing. It was like a more serious dreidel song. I don't know. It's weird. I worked with David Fincher when I was really young, doing Panic Room. We would do 80 takes of something, and I'd be kind of frustrated and confused at the end of it. I didn't realize that wasn't normal. It's funny, some of my best stories, some stories that I'm actually most proud of from film sets, from film experiences, is on that movie. Just being able to go home and be like, I broke all the blood vessels in my eyes. You know what I mean? That was cool. I get asked all the time, what's the appeal, both to vampires in general and just our story. And I mean, they're a little dangerous. We girls like to test ourselves, which is a huge part of the story, and also why I liked it. I fucking love me a vampire. Towards the end, it wasn't difficult to get back to old Beller. You know, you walk into a room and you see all of the same faces, and you pick up dynamics just naturally. You don't have to necessarily remember them. They're in your body. And that last book is filled with BFD, things that people have just been waiting for so long, and you can't ever relax. There's never going to be a moment where you go, okay, well, I'm done with the birth, awesome. I'm done with the honeymoon, awesome. I'm done with the wedding, great. I'm done with, saying goodbye to my dad for the last time ever. It is so ridiculously dramatic at so many points. This was my first wedding. It was insane. I can't, that's really difficult to find words for that experience. It was odd. The wedding dress experience was a huge deal, but we actually only tried on, I tried on one version of it, and then it was you tweak and alter and tweak and change, and then it's done. And BFD, dress, huge deal. You never know how that moment is going to be at the end of anything. I mean, this was long, and so it was kind of one of those situations where you think about that moment where it's going to come to an end, but it was less easy to live in that moment because I was anticipating it so much. I was going God, I wonder how I'm going to feel. I wonder what everyone's going to be doing. I wonder who's going to be there. Typically you do it, you're on a green screen and you're by yourself and you're like, and give yourself a pat on the back. But it was at the wedding, it was insane. Because the wedding was really obviously a huge deal to shoot, and so by the end of that day I was kind of wiped. And so I never really had that moment. I had it afterwards. I sort of, in the Virgin Islands, after we did one more sort of honeymoon scene, which we weren't too worried about, so it already felt like the movie was over, I felt like I could shoot up into the night sky, and every pore of my body would just shoot light. I felt lighter than I'd ever felt in my life. It kills you the whole time. You're you're always so nervous about doing it right, and when you get to the end, you're done and you can just walk away. And in this case, it took 3 years to do that, and so I have chronicled every stage of my life since I was actually 9, if you really go way back, and I get really embarrassed still. I don't know why, and it's weird too because I'm 10 years old, and you shouldn't be embarrassed necessarily if it's not even it's a version of yourself that should feel pretty far away, but it oddly doesn't at all, and so I still get pretty embarrassed. But occasionally, my dad or something will flip on some movie that is played on TV a lot, and you know, it's cool to like look at for 1 second and then, you know, dude, off now, like cut it out.